So in my last video, I talked about parajumble questions and some of the techniques that can be employed while solving such questions. In this video, I'll take you through some parajumble questions to give you an idea on how to exactly solve them. So let's begin. In some questions, the opening sentence as well as the closing sentence is given, along with 4 or 5 other sentences in a random order. Your task is to rearrange these 4 or 5 sentences in such an order that they form a coherent paragraph along with the opening and the closing sentence. Let's see if we can put some of the principles that we just learned to practice. Here is a sample parajumble question. So sentence 1 and sentence 6 both are given, and so are 4 more sentences. Sentence 1 says, one of the criticisms often made against the production of biofuel is that it requires the use of enormous areas of agricultural land, thereby reducing the available space needed to grow food. So it talks about biofuel and its production and its criticism. Okay, let's see which sentence carries this idea forward. Algae are abundant, that is P. No, it's just a definition, it is defining something. At the same time, of course, it cannot be there because, it is elaborating on something. Put this way, the cultivation of algae, once again, this is talking about algae, and it cannot be there. So S, but this problem could be solved by using some. Okay, the sentence S is a direct contradiction to the first sentence. So we can have one of the criticisms often made, and then the problem that is caused and that is being criticized can be solved. So after S1 we can put S. Now ideally you should look at the options at this time, because you will find out that only one option starts with S. So the sequence should be SPQR, but just to be sure, let's have a look. The next sentence, P. Okay, so but this problem could be solved by using some form of algae as the source of biofuel instead of crops like soya, sugarcane, or palm. Okay, this sentence says that algae can help solve this problem. Fine. And now in the next sentence, that is P, they're talking about algae. What are they, and how they grow and where they are abundant. Correct. The next sentence should be Q as per the options available. At the same time, their cultivation on a large scale. Okay, fine. So P defines the solution and Q adds to it. Fine, fine, fine. And then comes R. Put this way, the cultivation of algae for biofuel production sounds like an attractive idea. Obviously, this sentence is basically summing up the whole paragraph. Okay, let's have a look once again. Let's try and understand this in a bit of a different way. Now in this question, the opening statement presents a problem associated with the production of biofuel. Sentence S takes the flow of the paragraph further by presenting a solution. Of course, we have the word but that points to a contradiction. Sentence P then goes on to elaborate the solution. Sentence Q again adds to this elaboration. And finally, sentence R sums up the hypothesis. Sentence S6 follows, that is, the idea has actually been around for some time. In the United States, research began in earnest in the 1970s under President Jimmy Carter. See how this sentence, the sentence S6, sets up the tone for the next paragraph. By now you must have understood that solving parajumbles requires a bit of a reasoning skill. If you are good at solving problems rather, then you might find these kind of questions more interesting. English plays a role, but the more critical role is played by your ability to reason. Let's see another question. Okay, time to solve another question. The first sentence says There's nothing new in the idea that adolescence is a difficult period for everyone. The adolescents themselves, of course, as well as their parents. Okay, so this paragraph must be about the problems that adolescents face during that period, and of course, as a consequence, the problems faced by their parents also. Let's see which sentence carries this forward. Quite simply, the two generations live worlds apart. This can be the first sentence. Teenagers' brains really are different. Okay, I'm not getting any help over here because the first two sentences both look like they can be the ones that follow the opening sentence. Let's read further. For their part, adolescents can't understand what their parents are worried about. Okay, now there's an opening. See, when you read this sentence, you get an idea that this sentence must actually come after another one, and that sentence must explain what the worries of the parents are. Read this part again. Adolescents can't understand what their parents are worried about. So to be able to say this, you need a sentence in advance which has stated the worries of their parents. And I guess S, that is the fourth sentence, does exactly this. From an adult point of view, adolescents are difficult, rebellious, irresponsible. Yes, so I'm now sure. First we will have S and then R. But then this is just one mandatory pair. Let's see if we can make some more connections. So now we have established that S and R will be there together. Uh, P, once again, says quite simply the two generations live worlds apart. If you read this again, you will find out that it sums up the ideas presented in S and R. The first part, at least the first part of P, sums up the ideas presented in S and R, and that's why it should logically follow R. So now we have the order. Let's try and read the whole paragraph. There's nothing new in the idea that adolescence is a difficult period for everyone. The adolescents themselves, of course, as well as for their parents. Then comes S. From an adult point of view, adolescents are difficult, rebellious, irresponsible, and so on. Then comes R. For their part, adolescents can't understand what their parents are worried about. Okay. Then the summing up, that is quite simply the two generations live worlds apart. And the second part says, now psychologists are beginning to understand the biological basis for this eternal conflict. And in Q, this basis is explained. Okay, so now it becomes a very coherent kind of a paragraph. Uh, you know, if you read S6, it talks about this new knowledge, and the new knowledge is presented in Q. So Q has to come before S6. I think we have cracked it. Now that you're a bit more comfortable with solving PARAJUMBLE questions, let's see if you can solve these questions by yourself. Uh, I invite you to pause the video at the next screen where there will be a question, and you should just try and solve this question all by yourself. And I'll be helping you solve this question here only. But let's match whether our thinking, coincides or not. So we have six sentences over here: the opening sentence, the closing sentence, and four other sentences. The opening sentence says a new word has entered the English language in the last year, plasticarian. In other words, someone who attempts to live a plastic-free life. And sentence 6 says whose dislike of the stuff began after he had spent so much time in the laboratory studying it. So one thing is clear that the first sentence is a definition, and now the sentences that follow will need to elaborate or add to this definition. And if you look at sentence number 6 carefully, the first two words, whose dislike of the stuff, uh, it's the beginning of a relative clause or an adjective clause, so to say. Uh, so you need a noun before this, you need a name. Let's see what the options say. So the first option is, despite this weird connotation, the term is rapidly catching on and more people are, okay, it cannot be the first sentence because despite means that it has to contradict something. So this cannot be the thing. Q says the term is a strange one. Okay, it may be because uh, in S1 there was this word plasticarian. Okay, R says this means buying no products made of plastic or covered in plastic packaging and making use of as little plastic as possible. Okay, so we have a problem here. The problem is that R and Q both can be the first sentence because they are both explaining, but R sounds more like it because it talks about what plasticarian does, so adds more detail to it. And then another opinion on the term, and that is the term is a strange one. So yes, so the sequence must be R and Q. Fine. Let's read it once again. A new word has entered the English language in the last year, plasticarian. In other words, someone who attempts to live a plastic-free life. This means buying no products made of plastic or covered in plastic packaging and making use of as little plastic as possible in the home. The term is a strange one as it sounds a bit like vegetarian. Okay, it sounds, and then fine. Now, the word sounds correlates with the word connotation in sentence P, and that's why P should come after Q. So we have now what? We have got R, we have got Q and P, and the rest is S. The term was apparently coined by Thomas Smith, a chemistry PhD student. And see, the word, as I told earlier also, that in S6 we have this term, whose dislike of the stuff, and that means that you need a name before this. And the term, and the sentence S says that the term was apparently coined by Thomas Smith, a name. So S will come right before S6. So we have the order. We have S1 followed by R followed by Q, P, S and S6. Now that you have a better understanding of parajumble questions that have an opening and a closing sentence along with four other sentences, let's raise the bar and try to solve some questions which don't give you any hint about the opening or the closing sentence. Let's see if we can solve some of these. Okay, so here we have another set of sentences which we need to arrange in a paragraph. Here the job is a bit difficult because the opening sentence or the closing statement is not given, and we have to identify both along with the other supporting statements. Sentence A says, as this trend continued across various school boards. Obviously, it cannot be the first sentence because it is beginning with the word as, which is a conjunction or a connector. Similarly, the sentence B is also beginning with the word so. It can't be. C starts with this policy. Which policy are we talking about? We don't know yet. So this sentence must actually follow another sentence in which some sort of policy must have been explained. D. In 2011, a university college sparked a major outcry when it set off 100% cutoff for a course. This can be. This is a very generic kind of a statement, and this fits the bill actually. And it can definitely be the first sentence. Let's see the other two sentences before we make a decision. Okay. E says, what promises welcome relief? Once again, it has to be a part of a complex sentence, with this being some sort of clause. Okay. And okay, last one is but the university. Fine. So so now we have a unanimous choice. In 2011, that is D. Delhi University College sparked a major outcry when it set a 100% cutoff. This one is the first one. What next? So, which other sentence talks about this decision? Uh, A talks about this trend. It means that the decision has already become a trend. B talks about some sort of contradiction, a different policy. C talks about some policy we don't know yet about. E talks about a welcome relief. F, but the university vice chancellor explained this. Okay, so the sentence F must logically follow D because the word this in the sentence F, as you can read, but the university vice chancellor explained this in the context of how the number of Central Board of Secondary Education Class 2 students with more than 95% marks had risen dramatically over the previous year. So what's happening in this sentence is that the vice chancellor is explaining the decision made by that Delhi University College. Although it did not go down well with people, but the vice chancellor explained why it was taken. Okay, so now the decision has been made and it has been explained. I remember talking about some trend A as this trend continued. So logically, now when a decision is taken and it has been explained and now it is implemented, after some time it turns into some kind of a trend. So A talks about this trend. A says as this trend continued across various school boards. Fine. What will follow? Okay. So now we are left with sentence B talks about contradiction. Sentence C talks about some policy. Which policy? E talks about what promises welcome relief. Fine. So E says that okay. Another clue is that the word trend is here. What promises welcome relief from this unsustainably feverish trend. So a trend was mentioned in A, and now the author goes on to say that a relief from this trend is provided. So logically, this must be the next sentence. Okay, so what promises welcome relief from this unsustainably feverish trend is CBSE and other school boards' effort to end the marks moderation policy. Okay, now it's easy. See the word policy, it correlates with the word policy in sentence C. Here in C, the full name is given, and in E, the full name is given, and in C, it is mentioned as this policy. So logically, C must follow E. So what do we have now? What do we have now? We have D followed by F followed by A followed by E and C, and the last sentence is B because it talks about something that goes against the whole idea. So when CBSE gave as many as 16 extra marks. Correct. So the order once again is D, F, A, E, C, and B. So the questions after such a paragraph are given in this way. As you can see that the options are different in each question. Means we just don't have an order like A, B, C, D, E. The order keeps on changing, and you have to be careful while marking the sentences. Uh, I hope that you enjoyed this video and you learned something valuable from it. I'll leave you with another problem to solve for yourself and hope that you continue practicing.